Donald Trump plans campaign stops targeting Republican opponents and prosecutors. Donald Trump's 2024 campaign is such a dud he's resorted to making pleading phone calls for support. The royals are disappointed, angry, and confused, and that jeopardizes any future interactions with Prince Harry, King Charles's ex-butler says. Half Moon Bay mass shooting live updates, 7 people killed, suspect in custody. Lisa Marie Presley was a grandmother as daughter Riley Keough quietly welcomed baby.
This is breaking news.
I'm Erin Burnett in Washington.
Donald Trump plans campaign stops targeting Republican opponents and prosecutors. Washington, after 2 months of social media, campaign meetings, and political struggles, 2024 presidential candidate Donald Trump is preparing to return to the public stage with messages aimed at potential Republican opponents and potential criminal prosecutors. The former president has lined up appearances in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and the Washington, D.C. area, designed in part to demonstrate support in the face of prominent Republicans who may run against him, including former Vice President Mike Pence and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Trump also enters a new campaign phase as prosecutors in Atlanta and Washington consider whether to seek indictments over his handling of classified information and efforts to overturn his loss of the 2020 election to President Joe Biden. Trump has events Saturday in 2 early primary states, New Hampshire and South Carolina. First comes a trip to Salem, New Hampshire, to address a meeting of the New Hampshire Republican Party. He then travels to Columbia, South Carolina, to unveil his South Carolina leadership team. In early March, Trump will address CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, a coalition of conservative activists who helped fuel his political rise. The CPAC meeting is March 1st to 4th at National Harbor, Maryland, near Washington. While polls show a softening of support for Trump, his supporters in South Carolina include prominent names like Governor Henry McMaster and Senator Lindsey Graham. Following Trump, these charts show how Trump's 2024 bid is losing steam. The Saturday events will be Trump's first campaigning outside of his home base of Florida since he announced his 2024 campaign back in mid-November. Stephen Chung, the campaign's communications director, said the South Carolina appearance and other planned events will show there is significant support behind him. Many Republicans blame Trump for the party's disappointing performance in last year's elections. The GOP won the House by less than 10 seats, and Trump-backed candidates lost potentially winnable Senate races in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, costing Republicans control of the Senate. There have been other struggles. Shortly after his announcement, Trump found himself under fire for hosting a dinner that included anti-Semites and white nationalists. A USA Today/Suffolk University poll last month showed a drop in Republican support for the former Republican president. By 2-1, GOP and GOP-leaning voters now say they want Trump's policies but a different standard-bearer to carry them, USA Today reported. While 31% want the former president to run, 61% prefer some other Republican nominee who would continue the policies Trump has pursued. Opponents also point out that Trump may become the first major presidential candidate in history to campaign while under indictment. Trump has spent months attacking prosecutors as politically biased. Trump's legal travails, January 6 Capitol attack 2 years later, Trump still plagued by multiple investigations. Prosecutors in Atlanta are investigating him over pressuring Georgia election officials to reverse his loss of the state to Biden, in New York, over his past business practices, and in Washington, over his handling of classified documents. Special counsel Jack Smith, a frequent target of Trump's venom, is also investigating his actions in and around the January 6, 2021, insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Trump-Ryan history. Paul Ryan says Republicans need to focus on principles and not individuals as Trump remains a force in the party. Trump and his allies are quick to point that he still leads Republican polls and still has the most campaign money and highest name recognition within his party. Trump and his campaign have hired staff and set up an office in South Florida. Donald Trump's 2024 campaign is such a dud he's resorted to making pleading phone calls for support. Since announcing he was third run for president in November, Donald Trump has failed to stir up much excitement from, frankly, anyone. Republican voters, GOP leaders, Fox News, you name it. nobody really cares. This week, the embattled, one-term, twice-impeached ex-president will fly to Columbia, South Carolina to reveal the people he's tapped to lead his 2024 campaign strategy in the Palmetto State, which is one of the first to vote in the Republican presidential primary. Last week, it was announced he would be joined by lapdog Lindsey Graham and South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, plus a few lesser-known members of the state's congressional delegation and legislature, at the South Carolina State House. But according to the Washington Post, Trump's team is starting to panic because they don't have enough big names to attend the event, so they've begun making pleading phone calls to other potential supporters across the state in hopes of drumming up more press and excitement. Many South Carolina lawmakers and high-profile donors are hesitant to throw their support behind Trump this early in the game, in part because two of the state's most well-known Republicans, former Governor Nikki Haley and current Senator Tim Scott, are both rumored to be considering their own 2024 bids for president. In fact, Haley is expected to make an announcement sometime in the very near future after telling Fox News host Brett Baier last week, "When you're looking at a run for president, you look at two things. You first look at, does the current situation push for new leadership? The second question is, am I that person that could be that new leader? Yes, we need to go in a new direction. And can I be that leader? Yes, I think I can be that leader." Another obstacle Trump's team is facing in South Carolina are evangelicals, who no longer view him as the Messiah they once did, especially after he went on Real America's Voice last week to call them disloyal for not immediately backing him. "There's great disloyalty in the world of politics," he said when asked why he was having trouble shoring up support from Christian extremists leaders, before adding that nobody has ever done more for right to life than Donald Trump. And then there's the pesky problem of charisma-free Ron Don't Say Gay DeSantis, who Republicans are particularly excited about for whatever reason. "Right now my constituency is as excited about Ron DeSantis as Donald Trump, if not more," one state lawmaker told the Post. A poll conducted just last month found DeSantis well ahead of Trump among Republican voters in the Palmetto State in a hypothetical 2024 contest. 500 likely voters were surveyed for Axios by Differentiators data. DeSantis was the top choice, with 56% of those polled saying they would support him, compared to 35% who chose Trump. Trump's big South Carolina event will happen this Friday 4 p.m. at the South Carolina State House. The royals are disappointed, angry, and confused, and that jeopardizes any future interactions with Prince Harry, King Charles's ex-butler says. Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, contains some revelations that royal fans didn't expect to hear. And now King Charles III's former employee is explaining that what the Duke of Sussex put in his book was equally surprising for those who know the family and have worked in the royal household. Here's what the king's former butler had to say about Harry's claims against his family and what he thinks interactions between the prince and his relatives will be like going forward. Grant Harold was King Charles's personal butler from 2004 to 2011. During those years, he also spent time with and got to know Prince William and Prince Harry when they stayed at Highgrove House. He remembers the brothers being very close and therefore didn't expect to hear Harry's allegation that William got physical with him. Harold, who spoke on behalf of Spin Genie, said what he really can't understand though is why if true the Duke wanted to put that out there. "I never witnessed Harry and William having fallout or arguments like that ever," Harold stated. "I understand an argument can happen. I can believe that it can happen. It is possible that one pushes the other over, not trying to hurt them. It's not unusual what he described, but what's unusual is describing that to all of us so we all know about it. It's like going on social media and saying, oh, it's so awful, I've been attacked by such and such. Why would you do that? What would be the point of it? There is no point to it unless you're trying to make him look bad in front of other people. It's just so sad, because when I was there that was not at all what they were like. I was never aware of those kinds of arguments. It is possible, like with any brothers, that they had fallouts, but for him to tell this story and be so graphic that he fell into a dog bowl and it cut pieces into him, well, that's serious.